There was about half a dozen burlap sacks in the corner, and Scott took a closer look. Full of clumpy powder. Though no doubt that was the rain's doing. Was it feed? No, of course. Whitney's farm was for cotton, not livestock. And then Scott recalled these bags and how he'd came across them. Fertilizer from Tyler. He used most of the 5 tons given to him out of kindness, but it was useless. A transition product, labelled so on the bags. But then he remembered something, and even the sheer thought made him feel ill. But this thought gave him an insurance policy, and with a heavy heart and a sincere hope it really wouldn't come to this, he lifted the sacks laboriously onto his truck and threw a few jerry cans of diesel fuel around them. Driving slowly, as not to disturb his cargo as the truck rumbled up the dusty, uneven path away from the farm, Scott wondered one final time. Was this the solution? The one arrived at during a stormy night, when his emotions were charged, really right? There was still time. Still a few moments left in which he could turn around and sort it out another way. The clock on the dashboard swept further around. 8:30. Still time, yes. But was Transition and its odious CEO, Ashton Kleinman, really going to magic Brian and Elliot back by Scott's hasty deadline of 9? Could anything really happen in 30 brief fleeting minutes? Unsure, and glancing across, Scott saw the brown envelope, padded by the audio tape within. To delay the inevitable, at the T-junction at the end of the road he took a left toward town, where there was a post office. Trundling slowly along, it took half an hour to simply get there. The truck was so heavily laden with goodies. A present for Transition, to facilitate their transition, Scott reminded himself as he walked up to the counter. The clerk looked at the man before him, shabby, unkempt and unclean. Bathing and personal hygiene were paled into comparison. Actually, not important at all, for there was now no one Scott Whitney cared about seeing him in such a state of dishevelled depression. "Bub, what's happened?" the clerk asked, out of manners to some degree, and out of perverse nosiness to another. Scott looked up and grunted. "Never you mind, bub," the farmer spat back through a brow as furrowed as one of his fields had been back in the good old days. "Send this." The clerk looked down at the brown package Scott presented to him, in muddy, dirty hands that left imprints of moisture and muck on the envelope. The envelope itself was feathered and dog-eared with age, and in black marker pen was an address scrawled on the front. To the nearest newspaper that Scott Whitney could even think of, it mattered not. The tape just needed to be sent to someone. Picking it up with the very tips of his fingers, on the very extreme edges of the paper, partly in exaggerated fear of any nasties, the clerk weighed it to ascertain the price. $2.45. You want a receipt? Scott found a crumpled $10 note and threw it lazily towards the clerk. "Nah, and you keep the change. I won't be needing it any more." "Fine, sir," the clerk said, putting the money into the register as Scott walked out, the bell above the door chiming with a gentle trill as the door was opened and closed again. And a moment later, the engine of the truck rattled as it turned over, sputtering into some sort of life, and as the cracked tires crunched the gravel, yet left only a fleeting cloud of loose dirt in the air. Great, Scott thought. Stuck in traffic leaving the city. Stuck between 2 sports cars with a truckload of red diesel. He turned the radio knob, looking for something. Anything to drown out the meaningless buzz of the traffic. Engines purring and revving in lanes of gridlocked cars. Like ants, they shuffled forward asynchronously, but not getting anywhere fast. The speakers, battered and bruised in the doorways of the truck, were tinny and beaten up. The needles surfed through the frequencies, through mindless chatter, talk shows and loud music that did nothing but peak and had the life distorted out of it by the brain-dead stereo, until Scott could not endure. the somewhat silence of the city would be preferable to any of this rubbish, this utter crap. It was the sort of stuff that made him want to kill himself. But soon, the city was finally replaced by something far more familiar, the open road, and in the distance, the looming towers and industrial spires of the transition plant, his sole destination.